So this is the same page running in Firefox. You'll notice that autofocus doesn't exactly work, but the placeholder does, and it even recognizes that this is a required element, so the validation rules are firing against it. And as I scroll down, you can see that development experience range, here this is an input type equals range, but since the browser doesn't recognize input type equals range, it just renders a text box. So this is a good place to where maybe you want to create some sort of fallback experience, because that span that shows the value for the input range shouldn't be shown if it's not supported by the browser. And this is where Modernizer can really help out in making sure that you're rendering out the types of UI elements that are supported by the browser. When we take a look at t-shirt color, the data list is supported, but background color or the color picker is not, nor any of the date or time input types. So it still shows the value, but there's no sort of picker or spin buttons or anything available here within Firefox. Now this is Safari, and you'll notice that Safari does recognize the autofocus attribute as well as placeholder. As we scroll down, you can see numeric input has spin buttons available, and the range input type renders as a slider. The data list is not recognized, nor is the color picker. Now, within Safari, you don't get some really nice date and time pickers, but you do have spin buttons available so that it can correctly format the date for users. Now let's take a look at Internet Explorer. Now, IE doesn't recognize the autofocus, but it does recognize placeholder. And as we scroll down here, the range, at least in my opinion, is actually quite nice here within Internet Explorer. You get a preview of the values, so you may not even need this extra span in that JavaScript in order to report to the user what they're setting, and it looks quite nice. Data list exposes on focus of the input item that it's associated with, but input type equals color and any one of the date or time types are not really supported here within IE. The last one I want to take a look at is Opera. So autofocus isn't quite loading, I just clicked on it there to give it the highlight, but placeholder does show up nicely. Then the numeric type has the spin buttons that work, and then a nice slider here within Opera for the input type equals range. For the data list, when you click on that item, the data list will show up and you can select an item. And there's a color picker here, a little bit different than Chrome's, in order to choose the color. Now for the dates, you've got a picker for arrival date. And here this is separated so I can choose the date and then also have an individual spinner for the time. And you'll notice the little difference here within Opera is that since this is daytime local, it doesn't have the UTC or offset for time zones for this element. A spinner for the time input type. And for month, it gives you an opportunity to choose an entire month. And the very same thing for week. So I can come over here and go over to July and select week 29. So again, each one of the browsers deals with the different input types a little bit of a different way. If you make extensive use of some of the new input types, especially some of the date ones, which you've seen aren't very well supported in all of the browsers, you might want to make sure that you have a good fallback mechanism in place should you choose to use these input types.